At Ayaviri, we decided that we really did want to get to Espinal and take the detour. So there was actually a dirt road that went from Ayaviri to Espinal, and we didn't have to go kind of retrace our steps all the way back to Sicuani where there was still the demonstrations going on. The dirt road between Ayaviri and Espinal is just lovely, decent graded road and beautiful scenery. As we were going along about halfway through, more than halfway through, but really in the middle of nowhere, out of the blue, Jess's chain breaks. It gets caught between her sprocket and the the arm that's holding the rear wheel on there. The wheel freezes, it locks. Jess goes skidding and crashing over and into kind of a ditch and the side of the mountain. She broke the clutch handle and bent the clutch pedal. And of course, there was no chain. Although the clutch was broken, it was still usable.
Yeah, I had half of it.
I was able to bend the clutch pedal back, but I had to ride back to the past town to see if I could find a mechanic or a chain. Nobody there. So I rode forward to the next major town, which was Hector Tejada, where I found kind of immediately upon entering a mechanic who happened to have a perfect size chain. And set me up, and I rode back and put the chain on, and it worked out just fine. The chain was perfectly usable, and we were able to continue the ride. So with the new chain on there, Jess was a little unsure about her bike.
My bike was leaning.
It wasn't.
It was leaning to the left.
It wasn't. But anyway, she gained confidence as we kept going, and
I was counter steering again.
Nah. Within about 45 minutes, we were at Hector Tejada, so about 30 kilometers ahead. It's this tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. But one good thing is we had our first taste of alpaca. Nice guy named Wilbur had a little Wilbur had a little restaurant right there in the plaza. And
you had stir fry. Yeah, it was alpaca with like onions and tomatoes.
A little chewy, but really good.
That was nice.
There wasn't really much in the way of hotels or anything in Hector Tejada, so we decided, even though it was half hour or so from sunset, to make the 30 kilometer or so ride to Espinal, which was of course more dirt roads. Along the way we hit rain.
Yeah.
We hit several water crossings.
Which Greg did for me, which was very nice of him.
A lot of mud.
Yeah.
And then of course sunset and darkness. But we made it into Espinal, and it was, the end of a really good day of riding. So Espinal is like a regional capital, I guess, within Cusco. But for us, the reason we wanted to get there was because it is the starting point for a dirt road down to
Colca Canyon.
Colca Canyon. While we were in Cusco, we had stopped at Peru Moto Tours, where we spoke with Alejandro, who's the owner of the tour company. And he told us about the route from Espinal down to Colca Canyon. And just gave us great advice about the roads and which roads to take, because the eastern road is the one that's maintained and used. The western road, which some motorcyclists take and run into all kinds of rivers and trouble.
Yeah, I was reading about it online, on people's blogs, and everybody was saying how difficult it is and how they could barely make it, and it took them hours. And I was getting so scared, and even Greg was so scared the night before he couldn't even anxious.
The reason is because the western route has been has not been maintained for like the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So there's no bridges, and it's just a mess. The eastern route is...
It was lovely.
Lovely, really fast, lots of trucks, which is unfortunate, but really hard graded, hard packed. And we were doing like 80 to 100 kilometers an hour on the dirt road. I mean, it was fantastic. So about halfway, the really good truck route continues on to Arequipa, and we detoured kind of southwest towards Chile, which is kind of at the entrance to Colca Canyon. And then the road gets a little rougher, a lot of more tight curves, tight turns.
In the gravel.
More gravel, more ups and downs. Very scenic, fantastic, but a little trickier for off-road riding. Around Ceballo Rumiacta, there are a couple of neat things. One is the Castillos Encantados, which is this rock formation that kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's just gorgeous. The other thing is we encountered a huge herd of sheep and alpaca.
Oh, the alpaca!
That were just being herded by their,
Yeah.
Their shepherds.
Yeah, they're shepherds, I guess. Yeah, they were just standing there and they were watching us. And then the shepherd had a newborn one in her hands.
We reached Chile in the late afternoon, and it's a really lovely town at the entrance to Colca Canyon. There's this one road that's got a ton of statues along it. It's really, I think, a pedestrian road, but we rode up it on the bikes. And a lovely little plaza, and also a restaurant where I had an alpaca sandwich, and that was another great alpaca experience. A little chewy, but great tasting.
So from Chivay, we went to Colca Canyon, and it was a pretty tough road. It started out nicely, and we went through a few little towns, and then there were some paving stones, and then eventually, we got into some really big rocks, really ups and downs, some curves on the mountainside. It was lovely to see. There were some cool tunnels, but it was quite difficult. I was a little bit scared.
We reached the Colca Canyon Mirador around a little before 9, before most of the tourists had gotten there, and that is when the condors are supposed to come out.
Well, that's what we were told.
We were told when we got there that 2 condors had just flown out a little while before, and there were no more the whole time we were there.
Yeah.
So for us, it was really more about the ride and just the scenery, and unfortunately, no condors. From Colca Canyon, we went east along some beautiful mountain highway, heading towards the Bolivian border. Along the way, there was a lot of ascent. We got 4,000 plus meters, I think 4,700 meters, and it got really cold.
Oh my god, it was freezing.
Just above freezing. Rain.
Yeah.
It was tough going. There were some beautiful lagunas along the way.
Yeah.
But you couldn't really appreciate it that much because you were just so cold. And of course, Jess's BMW cases just suck, and they're constantly kind of shaking loose off their rack. And so at one of the coldest spots, I had to, take my gloves off with my numb fingers and try and get the cases sorted out. In the early evening, we reached Juliaca. It was getting dark, and Juliaca has got to be the ugliest city I think that I've seen on this trip. And especially the circunvalación, which is kind of the road that kind of goes around the town instead of going through the town center, was absolutely horrendous. I mean, it was all dirt and rocks.
It was just dust.
And uneven and dusty.
And we couldn't see anything because it was dark.
Oh, it was just the worst, the worst town I think we've been through. From Juliaca, we continued east to Lake Titicaca, and there we hit Puno, which is the capital of the region of the same name. And Puno is just a lovely town that's kind of nestled into between the hills beside Lake Titicaca, and just really gorgeous. From there, we continued along Lake Titicaca until we reached the border with Bolivia. The border crossing at Yunguyo, Peru was easy enough. Uneventful.
Yeah, they were nice to us.
The border crossing on the Bolivian side was at Casani, and that went smoothly enough. They were real nice. This was the first time an official tried to solicit a bribe from us. The police officer had stamped our vehicle permits, and we were all done, and then he asked how we wanted to pay the 100 Bolivianos. And we said, why do we have to pay that? And, something about, well, that's what the stamp costs. We asked if there was anything...
in paper
if there's anything written down. We didn't see anything on the walls.
So I was like, Greg, just ask him. I don't see anything, and I didn't read that there was supposed to be any charge.
So he picks up his kind of law book, his field guide to the law, and turns to a page that was marked and shows me where it says 400 Bolivianos. So I start reading, and that section, and I read it out loud to him, was if a driver is caught inebriated, the fine is 400 Bolivianos. And I said, I kind of looked at him like, what are you talking about? And he, backed up, hold on, and he had to go talk to his colleagues. Meanwhile, I told him we would be waiting at our bikes. We kind of got ready to go. And when we saw him again with his colleague, I flashed him a thumbs up, and he was kind of, spacing out. And then we just rode out of there. It was Sunday when we crossed into Bolivia, and it was the Sunday before Carnival, which meant that Monday and Tuesday are both holidays. After the border crossing, we rode through Copacabana, which is a nice town with a nice church, really touristy. After Copacabana, we rode through the really lovely hills along
that
Lake
was nice
Titicaca.
along the lake.
After about 30-45 minutes, the Ruta Nacional 2 hits the Estrecho de Ticuina, where you have to take a boat to get, I guess, to the other side of the mainland, the other side of the lake. We loaded our bikes on, and of course loading on, my wheel got caught in one of the really uneven planks of these rickety boats.
Oh my God.
And I just went over, and it was unpleasant. Jess rode right on and had no trouble.
And I hated the whole thing. It was on an uneven plank, and I felt like I couldn't let the bike down because it was gonna go over. And nobody was helping me. It was.
And the whole time during the crossing, the boat is creaking and flexing, and I'm seeing water at the bottom. And they use the boats all day, every day.
It's for 3 cars. So
it was unpleasant. It was really fast going on the other side of the strait. So fast going that Jess, who was in the lead, rode right through a police checkpoint.
I didn't ride right through it. The guy was there, he had a flag in his hand, and he had a radar gun. And he was doing that motion, slow down with the flag. And I couldn't read his lips, I don't know what he was saying. And I thought he was just trying to say...
Pare, which means stop,
Well,
stop.
I thought he was saying just slow down, and he was showing the radar gun, because I thought I was speeding. And all the other places people slow me down like that. So then the guy in front of me left, he went too, and so then I just followed as well.
About 45 minutes outside of La Paz, we got pulled over.
I got pulled over
Jess
first.
was leading and got pulled over by Falcon. Falcon is the Bolivian DEA. So because we had ridden through this police checkpoint,
unknowingly,
they had radioed La Paz and sent out 2 cars, 8 people,
team.
to pull us over. They had our description. They were communicating by radio. And they went through everything we owned. They even lifted Jess's seat.
They looked in the
gas tank. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite an experience. But they were extremely professional. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, when they had tested all the medications in our first aid kit, including the bag of Quartem for malaria, and discovered that we just weren't carrying what they expected us to be carrying, they were really friendly and gave us some advice, and we were on our way. Because Monday and Tuesday were holidays for Carnival, we couldn't take the bikes in for servicing the BMW. But fortunately, Jess's friend Jim came in to visit us for the week.
Yeah.
So he met us in La Paz, and we spent the week with him. It was great fun.